Welcome to the Shaping Portsmouth podcast. Shaping Portsmouth is a collaboration of key Portsmouth businesses, transforming Portsmouth together. Hello and welcome to another Shaping Portsmouth podcast with me, Dave Humphries, and today I am joined by Jack Boaden and Jess Spencer from First Steps First Aid. Hello both.
Hiya.
Hello.
So, First Steps First Aid, you run that as a business, the two of you, and also Charlotte, who's not here today.
That's right.
And we'll go into why that is in a bit, Jack.
Yeah.
But you run that business, but you've set it up as three paramedics.
That's
and that's
right.
how you know each other originally.
Yes.
Before we talk about First Steps First Aid, we'll find out a bit about both of you and how then First Steps First Aid came to be and why.
Sure.
Jess, you are Portsmouth born and bred.
I am.
Jack, you're not.
No, I'm from Devon originally. Yeah, came to Portsmouth when I came to university. So I've been here for about 15 years now. But yeah, born in Devon, spent about 3 years in New Zealand when I was younger because my dad's a farmer. Did some farming out there, and then moved back down and spent the majority of my childhood in Devon.
And is there a particular reason why, as a farmer, you would go to New Zealand?
So at the time, there's the dairy farming industry was probably more advanced in New Zealand than what it was in England at the time.
Yeah.
So a lot of what my dad was doing was going out there, learning how they did things over in New Zealand and bringing that back to England, which, he did. And
so the idea was never a permanent move. It was always to learn a little bit, steal some ideas and come back.
kind of,
Yeah. Yeah. So, grown up in a sort of rural environment in Devon,
I did, yeah.
ended up in Portsmouth. How was that?
I know, yeah, a bit of a shock when I first came here, to be honest with you, because I've always been really rural in terms of where I grew up. But yeah, moved to university and obviously got settled here, got my job here, met Charlotte, who is obviously my wife, and we've now got 3 girls. So I'm very settled in Portsmouth now and really, really love the city.
And so going back to our original point of Charlotte not being here, that the one of the 3 girls might be why.
So Emily, she was born on the 28th of last month, so she's 3 weeks old yesterday. So yeah, it's,
Wow. So congratulations.
thank you. Yeah, back to sleepless nights and nappies and everything that comes
all
with it.
All the fun that comes with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Jess, so the defining moment in this story, I think, is probably what Jack mentioned there, which is university, isn't it?
Yes.
That's where all 3 of you first met.
It was many years ago now. We met at Portsmouth University as we were training to be paramedics. So seems forever ago.
So I think there's probably an interesting point, because I don't know why it probably hadn't dawned on me originally that actually to be a paramedic you would need to go to university and study that. So if someone out there listening is thinking, I'd quite like to become a paramedic, how do they go about doing that?
So originally you wouldn't have had to go to university to be a paramedic. There were other in-house courses training that you could do. As of quite a few years ago now, you now would need to go to university. So you could either apply direct to a university to become a paramedic, and you'd want to put yourself in a good position because it is quite competitive generally to get onto those courses. The other way, if you want to work in the ambulance service, is to apply for an emergency care assistant role, and then develop that training from within the ambulance service. You would still need to go to university, but you could do so whilst earning a wage that way. Again, it is quite competitive though, because there are a lot of people that would like the opportunity to work in that industry.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
interesting.
So all 3 of you met at university, then all became paramedics locally?
Yes, we did. So fresh-faced, we qualified. I was 21 when I qualified as a paramedic. So I'd had life experience beforehand. And after that meeting, sort of at the university, we then were all employed by South Central Ambulance Service, serving the local communities. And I loved that I'd grown up in the city, having that familiarisation, particularly in the training, knowing the cities, knowing the layout, especially when we started our careers, because you're driving and responding. So having that knowledge around the areas and where you're going is particularly helpful. So it was something that I spent years frontline experience. And then I became a mum to 2 boys who are now 7 and 9 years of age. But it was something that it made me transition my career from being a frontliner shift work with a husband that works away with his career, needing a role that was one of which I could be present at home. So I then went into education and started to teach resuscitation courses within the local NHS community trust. That was Solent NHS Trust at the time. So again, it gave me that experience, having had community experience in my teaching and training role for that. And then I went into sort of an educator in practice role, so supporting people again in their education clinically. And then I've had the opportunity to be facilitator in hospitals and universities, again, local universities across the region, to be able to train and enhance people's communication, which is a big part, particularly when it comes to first aid and how you communicate with people. And then I've worked in clinical practice in various settings. And again, it's sort of come round as part of the business, as we're all from an education background, that assurance when people come into our courses, we've got those years of experience that it really enhances that learning and experience for the delegates.
Yeah, definitely. We'll come on to the importance of that, I think, when we talk about the kind of transition into the business. But we've also got a little bit of overlap in careers, because you also worked in custody as well, didn't you?
I did. Yes, in Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. So my main station was Portsmouth, and then I used to cover for Southampton, Basingstoke, and also had quite a few ferry trips over to the island, which was very different compared with Portsmouth custody, with the numbers.
Absolutely. Yeah,
very different.
Definitely. And of course I can relate to what you're saying about sort of doing response work locally as well, and it's amazing how well, especially pre sort of sat navs, how you could work out the shortest route between 2 places very quickly in your head.
I didn't have that when I first moved here, because I had no idea where I was going. But driving around there all day, every day, you soon pick it up, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great place to work in that sort of emergency service environment. Definitely,
it is.
Definitely. So we've got 3 paramedics, all met at university, all working locally, and then suddenly, no longer in the field of ambulances, but setting up a business. So how did that happen?
So there were a number of factors really that brought us in there. I would have said having kids was part of it, and again, like Jess, having a role that could allow us to be present for the kids, as well as doing something that's interesting and important. And talking about it being important, when we're working in the ambulance service, one thing that we realised was the importance of first aiders. So that the first steps in any emergency are so important, especially in any cardiac arrest situation. And what we notice is the impact that a good quality first aider can have on saving someone's life is massive. And so when we started the business in March 2023, we started initially delivering parent and baby first aid, just helping new parents feel prepared so that they can deal with emergencies with their kids. And what we found from that was that the guys that were doing the course found so much value in having paramedics deliver it, because they could ask so many more questions than what they would get elsewhere, people who've got experience dealing with a variety of situations. And then from that, we started getting businesses approach us saying, could you do our first aid training for us as well? So we started thinking, well, how can we deliver that? What are the regulations behind it? And we built the business from there to allow us to deliver to businesses. And we grew to delivering to schools, to GP surgeries, to dentists, charities, businesses. And all of the feedback we've had is that people really do find value in paramedics delivering that content. Because you don't need to be a paramedic to deliver that content. From the HSE guidelines, you could be a first aider with a teaching qualification. But the importance and the confidence that people gain from having somebody who, firstly, has experience doing it, and secondly, can tailor what they're teaching to every industry. What somebody who works in construction needs to learn can be very different to somebody who works in an office or in a warehouse. They've all got different needs, and having somebody who's got experience working out in the community in all of these different environments, people found really beneficial. And we've been really fortunate that everybody who we've worked with so far has given us really good feedback, and we've kind of grown quite organically in that respect, in that we've just had referral upon referral from businesses saying, come work with these guys. We're doing something that little bit different that other people aren't doing.
Yeah.
And thankfully that's just helped us grow from there, which we're really, really pleased with. And it's, for us, it's about making a big impact right the way across Portsmouth and across the community. And the best way we can do that is by working with as many people as we possibly can. And having that opportunity, we're really grateful for now.
Yeah, definitely. So as a unique selling point, having 3 paramedics, experienced paramedics, and local as well, so yes, relatable to local businesses, local organisations, is obviously, quite a good selling point, and that real world experience. But it still must have been daunting to kind of step out of the comfort zone of essentially a public sector role and into the private sector with your own business. How did that feel?
Stepping out of the comfort zone, interesting you talk about that, because it's certainly something that for all of us as registered paramedics, we're very much used to those public sector careers, and also as registered paramedics we have to keep up with our own professional development. So CPD is something that, because we are all registrants, we keep up with that standard of making sure that everything we're delivering is compliant, up to date. So when we're delivering those courses, it also gives us that ability to deliver it off of this is the evidence-based for what we're delivering. And as you say, it's a big leap. However, when we begun the courses, for the amount of recommendation, we thought we have to take that step away from the public sector to be able to meet the need for the numbers of courses, and also that provision for businesses to be able to say, yes, we can come to you to deliver your course, or you're welcome to come to our centre and we will deliver it there for you. But it is certainly something, it's not an easy jump to make. It takes a lot of courage to do that, because you have the safety net sometimes of the public sector, but we certainly recognise from a business perspective we need to take the leap now, and we've not looked back. It's certainly flourishing. Good. And it's a nice place to be. Certainly, I just want to recognise that initially it's quite a daunting prospect. But as it's grown and how it's developed, and the amount of people, again, after a course who have said, I really enjoyed that course. I often find when I'm instructing on a course, people enter the room and they're rather anxious at the thought of doing another first aid course. For a lot of people, it's that requalification. Yeah. So they're very much used to having done first aid courses for years. And genuinely the impact and the difference it makes when you speak about and you find out from people, what are your hopes and what are your fears of your training today? And making it inclusive and relevant, and making it that valuable experience, and for the learner enriching that inclusivity of what matters to you, or what situation have you been in, but also as an instructor being able to maintain psychological safety. That's something that we recognise for us as paramedics. This is our every day. We are used to the situations and what we're discussing, whereas I think as educators and as trainers, it's imperative that we maintain that psychological safety. And we'll go on a little bit more later to talk about how we maintain that support and provision ongoing. We don't see our courses as a one standoff alone annual course and then you don't hear from us again. So I'll talk a little bit more about that later.
So It's quite interesting actually, because there's probably sort of two different transitions in play here. There's from operational paramedic to teacher,
Yes.
but there's also public sector to private sector, and needing to go from, I suppose, the security that you have of a guaranteed salary, income, the safety of the public sector gives you, into
Absolutely,
entrepreneurialism essentially.
Yeah, it's a big jump.
Yeah. How did you navigate that? Where did did you lean into support, or how did you manage to get going and find your way through it?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the advice that we got with starting a business was you need to invest yourself fully into it. If you're going to make it a success, you can't hedge your bets. You almost need to hedge your bets. Sorry, you can't kind of go half into it and try and keep that safety a little bit. We were quite fortunate in that what we were able to do initially was move onto a bank contract within the NHS, and that way we could deliver everything that we needed for the business, but having kids at home, a mortgage to pay, everything like that. When the business is in that very early stage, you need a certain degree of safety. You've got to take risks, but they need to be calculated. For me, so we were able to, have those hours there as a safety net for us, and then gradually reduce them and slowly just focus our efforts more and more into the business as it grew, and that worked really, really well for us. But there did then just become a point where you think, right, we're here now. Let's throw everything we've got into this, and really, really make it work. And I think that the biggest, most important factor for us within that was the support that we've had from everybody that we work with. That's what's made it work.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you've got your individual roles within the business. So obviously, Jack, you're COO, Jess, you're MD, Charlotte, CEO.
Yeah.
I'm guessing though it's very much about all pulling together, and it's all hands to the pump.
We're very, very different people with very different strengths.
Yeah.
So we're all paramedics. I'm a terrible instructor. I can't do it at all.
Right.
Jess is a fantastic instructor, which is why Jess is the one delivering the courses. But she's equally involved in the development of the business, because I think in order to make a business work, you need people who are doing that business. So obviously, I tend to do a little bit more of the operations, a little bit more of the documentation, the regulations, that sort of side of it, all the boring stuff, really. Charlotte and Jess are much, much better at delivering what we're doing. Speaking to people, networking, doing the side that take the business forward. I'm a bit more of a management behind the scenes sort of guy, really. But I think it takes all these different strengths and different personalities to make it work. And without every single one of our input in each of the different areas, it wouldn't happen for us. Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. So, just reflecting on your kind of business journey rather than the sort of paramedic side of it before we go into that, if you were giving advice to someone else who was thinking about setting up a small business and starting out on their own, what would it be from what you've learnt so far?
My advice would be, know what you want out of your business. So for us, there were two things that we wanted. We really wanted to make an impact. Yeah. So, getting people, the first aiders, trained to what we think is a really good level, making, developing confidence from the first aiders in the community. But also from a business perspective, it's learning, how much do you want to make from your business? How big do you want the business to grow? Having that end plan of what you really want your business to be, and factoring it to grow towards that. I think sometimes you can just think, I'll just develop this business. This is what we deliver, and we'll just try and deliver it. But you need to understand where you're trying to go to. Yeah. And I think for me, that really helps you then set a plan that you can work towards.
I think I'd agree that planning's always quite important. you have similar views, Jess?
Very similar. My advice for small business owners: keep going.
Yeah.
Because it's certainly not easy, and it's easy to get those moments where you lose sight of your goal and your vision. It takes a lot of energy within business to keep that momentum. So keep your spark and keep going. And in doing that, ask for help, speak to other people, because you'll often find with other small businesses and much larger businesses, people like the authenticity of somebody saying, I've not done this before, I don't know what I'm doing. And asking for help and having real conversations and learning from other people is something that certainly as part of our journey that we've been doing, is saying to people, networking and being authentic as you do that. And as a small business owner, recognising you're going to be wearing those multiple hats every single day, and that transitioning of that role in a small business takes a lot of energy, and it's a particular craft that I'm still definitely going to be continuing to learn over the years.
I really like that, actually, because if you think of a big business, big company, and all the different myriad of roles you have, all the different departments in a small business, quite often that's you, all of it, all of those hats. But I think it is really sound advice, because it is really easy as a small business owner, I suppose, to feel like you're getting it wrong, you're the only one this has happened to, and actually when you kind of punch out of your bubble and talk to other people that have walked the same path, you find that's generally the most successful businesses are built on all of those mistakes, the failures, the difficulties, the learning along the way. So no, really, really interesting. So Jess, you were talking a minute ago about the actual course delivery.
Yes.
And you obviously you've spoken about the impact that first aiders can make, particularly in cardiac arrest scenarios, by following the initial steps.
Yes.
I think probably everyone in business will have been used to going on a first aid course at some point, and will have had different experiences of what that's like. So I'm kind of interested to find out what a first aid course is like to do. But I kind of reflect on my own experiences of all that first aid training, and particularly cardiac arrest and things like, I think there were no 2 years where I did my refresher where resuscitation was the same. It kind of changed annually. It's like, can we stick to one number of compressions to breaths? The reality is, those initial first steps, what is it important for someone to get right?
Yes.
And then how do you approach that in the way you deliver the training?
Yes. I emphasise to people doing something rather than doing nothing is your first step in when you're faced with, let's go for worst case scenario, a cardiac arrest, somebody's heart has stopped and they require those compressions. And the way in which and how I deliver it is breaking it down so people know the why. Why do we do chest compressions? Not using medical jargon, and I keep it very simple. But people often say, knowing that why and you giving that explanation with a real world insight of all the non-technical skills. And when I'm talking about non-technical, I mean communication and how you'll have lots of things going on around you as you try and deliver that care to the individual requiring it. So I'll give simple steps and pointers as to when you're measuring whether somebody's breathing or not, and you're doing your 10-second breathing check, it's important to remember to count out loud so that people around you know that you are doing something in that moment, so it doesn't increase and add to the panic of you going silent whilst you're assessing, are they breathing or not? And it's giving people those pointers that helps people to remember. And it's not just me saying that. People come back and they give us that feedback and say, do you know what, I had somebody with a bleed and I remembered to elevate the arm above the line of the heart because I remember you telling me the difference that makes to do with the pressure. And again, I keep it simple so people leave knowing the why, but the impact that makes. And I'd love for you to come to a first aid course with us, because it's certainly something that I break the information down, but I make sure everyone's with me and has an opportunity to ask any question that they wish. There's no such thing as a silly question. And I think once you create that platform where people feel comfortable, and I will always do the check-in with people before we go on to that next topic. any questions, any opportunity, so that people feel as though, and often I'll have a room of people all show their hands to say, can I just check I am getting this right?
Yep.
And a really key example of that, we delivered a basic life support course at the City of Portsmouth colleges to 40 health and social care students.
Wow.
And they'd never had any first aid training before. And we went in and they'd never seen a defibrillator. And we thought, are they going to give it a go? Are they going to do a practical? Because it wasn't a course, it was sort of a taster session. And I kid you not, the amount of questions, every student was giving it a go. And the energy within the room afterwards, they all said, I feel that I could do that. And some of them had to do that on relatives.
Yeah.
And so something whereby you give people those steps, they say, well, you can call 999 and they will also talk you through, which of course they will on that script-led process, but it's having an opportunity and making it practical, but also for us as instructors, having the real-world insight without using scare tactics when we're delivering, which is also really important for us when we deliver our courses.
Absolutely.
Yeah, defibrillators, big scary things, but actually really simple
Really
to
simple.
use
They
once
are.
you know, and they largely tell you themselves what they want you to do. You know, I remember going back to custody, the first one we got in custody, and that training on how to use it. Brilliant bits of kit, brilliant, and make huge difference. But going back to that initial point, it's, I suppose it's probably helpful if you know what the optimum number of chest compressions to breaths is, but if you can't remember, if you understand why you're doing it, just getting in and doing some is better than nothing, and that's kind of the key to it.
Absolutely. It's myth busting in the courses, because we get a lot of myths that come in, or again, out of date training that people may have not needed first aid training, so they've let that training lapse, and it's up to date. And we say to people, as long as you do something, so if you do 30 compressions and you are able to do 2 breaths for an adult with a barrier, fantastic, but don't put yourself at risk. If you don't have a barrier, then continue compressions. The amount of difference that can make is essential for the potential outcome of the individual.
Yeah, definitely. So in terms of that step from where you started with essentially parent and baby first aid training now into the world of businesses, how's that looking for you as a business yourself in terms of growth and the demand on you and how you're able to meet that?
So we've had a really interesting sort of last 6 to 12 months. A lot of developments, and I think probably for us, because that growth has been quite organic with referrals from business to business, when something grows like that, it doesn't grow in a linear line, does it? The more businesses you're working with, the more referrals you're getting to other businesses. So for us, we went very quickly from sort of putting out the odd day here and there and saying, Jess, can you do this day? Can you do that day? To we need to take on a few more instructors. And probably the single most important thing for me in our business is the instructors and choosing the right people. And that's what's allowed us to keep getting the referrals come in. So our instructors aren't just paramedics, they're also all trained educators and assessors, and they are nice people, friendly people, approachable people, and that for me is what really makes a difference, because people learn when they're in a calm, open environment. They don't learn when they feel stressed or feel intimidated. So thankfully from these referrals and a lot of the work we've been doing, we've taken on a number of big clients through Portsmouth now who've chosen us as their preferred training provider, which we're really, really happy about. A lot
Definitely.
of the Shaping Portsmouth patrons. We want to work with all of them.
Mm.
Anybody who's out there, Portsmouth College, we're working with now. We'd love to work with Whitelink, with the university. There's more out there and to really help us make an impact. But yeah, that growth has just happened, and we've had to respond to that. And it's keeping your quality of what you're delivering whilst enabling you to meet the needs of a growing business. It's been a challenge, but I'm really confident the guys we've brought in to to help us with that are fantastic, and I'm really looking forward to getting them more involved. Yeah.
Brilliant. Sounds fantastic. And you certainly don't want to let demand water down the quality of what you set out to do in the first place. But I think, you've got such a strong vision and so focused on your plans. I think there's probably a little danger of that. I think I get a sense
we're in a
very grounded,
fortunate position of having a lot of good contacts within the ambulance service to find people who are very current, very up to date, and people who would love the opportunity to teach this stuff. So we've been really fortunate in that respect, just from our connections, that we can bring those guys in and pick the people that we really think will be perfect for it.
Yeah. So you mentioned Shaping Portsmouth's partners there, which segues nicely into Shaping Portsmouth and where I want to go next. So you are now members of Shaping Portsmouth.
Yep.
And I think by the time this goes out, we will have done the comms announcement for you. Amazing. So people will know that you're a Shaping Portsmouth partner. But we'll talk just a little bit about how that came to be, and the wonder that is Danny O'Brien's mind down at Citrus. So some people listening to this podcast will recall Danny putting out on LinkedIn almost like a little competition or grant bidding process to take the last bit of money that was left in the Citrus Foundation for the year, by putting in essentially a bid around what you would do with that money. And you guys put a bid in, didn't you?
We did.
And so what was it you said you were going to do with the money?
We were very fortunate. So we wrote the bid, didn't we? And we shared already what we were doing within the city to support charities, and the amount of work we'd already put into in our own time to make first aid training accessible for people. So we'd done in October a Restart a Heart campaign, which is a national initiation from the Resuscitation Council to getting people learning CPR. We also provide for the Home Start charities parent and baby courses for the families to again, and we do that in our own time. And in our sort of application for the grant, we said, well, how about if we offer this to businesses within the city to say we will offer first aid training for them to come and experience, because I certainly believe in it's when you experience a course, you then see the value and the quality of what we do and how we deliver that and the difference. And so we can't put that in a caption. We can't put that in a leaflet. We can't. So in order to share with the businesses of what we do and how we deliver, we've offered 6 courses. So there'll be 12 places per course. And these are going to be delivered monthly, one a month. And we're doing this completely in our own time. And so all the equipment, all of the training, and each delegate will be certificated for 3 years post the course delivery.
So this is the full health and safety at work compliant first aid course.
So this is emergency first aid at work.
Not a watered down version. It's the full 1 day thing that businesses need.
Yes.
We've got, for anyone who struggles like me with the maths, I've got my calculator and I've worked out that 6 courses are 12 weeks, so we're talking 72 courses.
Correct.
72 places.
Yes.
So and earlier you did say, Jess, that you'd love for me to come on one of the courses. Well, that's exactly what's going to happen, because what you're doing is you're delivering these courses through us at Shaping Portsmouth. So we're going to be supporting you to deliver these courses, 1 a month for the next 6 months. And we're going out across all sorts of different groups of people in the city. So we're looking at the third sector and supporting some of our charitable organisations. We're looking at some of our volunteers. We're looking at small businesses. We're looking at Shaping Portsmouth partners. And we're offering places to all of those to come and experience the course, but more importantly, to actually get some of their people trained up to that emergency first aid standard absolutely free of charge.
Yeah,
Yes.
amazing.
Which is brilliant. So certainly from both myself and I know Dan would echo this, thank you very much for your offer. The reality of this is actually financially, from a commercial point of view, what you are giving the city in terms of these courses is valued at far more than the money that you've bid on.
Yes.
So it's a massively generous offer, and I know that both Dan and I are really, really delighted with what you were doing. So I suppose congratulations on firstly being the successful bid.
Thank you.
And secondly, thank you for being so generous with the offer and what you're doing, because it is something that is going to make a real difference.
Yeah.
And I know for the first course, we're focusing on charities, and I know that the places are already getting booked up for those, and we're getting a lot of interest in that. So if there are people listening who would like a couple of places completely free of charge for their organisations, just contact us at Shaping Portsmouth, and we will facilitate that and get you on one of the First Steps First Aid emergency courses.
Perfect.
Likewise, if there's an organisation that actually wants to host those courses, we know what the dates are for each month, but it'd be good to move the venues around a little bit as well. Mm-hmm. So anyone that's interested in doing that, contact us, and we could definitely put something on there. So brilliant offer. Thank you guys very much for that. It's going to make a real difference to the city.
Yeah, I hope so.
Obviously, as part of that, you've also become members of Shaping Portsmouth, so it will be great to introduce you to more of our partners and kind of watch your journey and see how the business grows. So, looking forward to that. And we know you already from attending some of our business support workshops, because you attended one of the Jodie Goodchild lead generation workshops. I think you attended the first one.
I believe it was. Charlotte and I attended, yes.
I think it was the first one you came to. So, yeah, brilliant. So, really good stuff. So, could talk about this loads more, especially like getting into the actual bones of first aid and advice and stuff, but we're out of time. But we always like to finish with a little recommendation from our guests of somewhere to go or something to do in Portsmouth. So I'll start with you, Jack, because I think, Jess, this would be somewhat easier for you, being Portsmouth born and bred. Jack, what would be your thought on what you would recommend to someone?
So a little bit niche from me, but I do enjoy fishing. And Portsmouth's a great place to live for
Doesn't
that.
make you a bad person.
So I would say to anybody in Portsmouth, get yourself up at 4:00 in the morning, get down to Farlington Marshes, Langston Harbour, Portsmouth Harbour, anywhere where you can get in the water and watch the sun come up there. It's such a good experience and a great place to sort of make the most of Portsmouth.
Yeah, is actually being in the water important?
It is for me. So I realise not everybody has waders.
You're right. So you're going in with waders on. You're not cold water swimming here.
Yeah, certainly not in the winter anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, absolutely. Farlington Marshes, I don't think that's been mentioned on any of our podcasts before, but not just for fishing, but great spot for the birds and the wildlife, loads to see. But obviously, Farlington Marshes, you're on the right side of the island for sunrise.
Yes.
Hence, I suppose, the need for that 4 a.m, unless you want to leave it to the winter, when you can do it slightly later than 4 a.m, I guess.
That's it, yeah.
But
there's less fish.
But a nice summer's day, sunrise, absolutely great shout. Jess, how about you?
Mine doesn't involve a 4 a.m. start.
This is good.
So mine involves being
I'm
a mum
erring to yours already more.
to 2 boys who are 7 and 9 who love bike riding. So my recommendation is to go to the Queen's Enclosure Woods in Waterlooville, where you can walk, bike trail, dog walk. And we will often spend an hour within there, particularly when it warms up and we get those warm days where you think it's too warm. Under the shade of the trees, it's bliss. So that would be my recommendation.
It's so I'm a little bit with you on this one because it's locally relevant to both of us, and we were talking about before the podcast. I was chair of governors at Queen's Enclosure School, which is right on the woods there. So I love that area. It's one of my favourite dog walking spots. But it's a bit of Queen's Enclosure Woods is a bit of an interesting place. I'm going to liken it to the TARDIS. Like when you walk around the outside, you think it's quite small. When you get in the middle of it,
yes,
huge.
It is.
And there are trails and tracks going everywhere. It's really easy to stick to the main one, but if you get off of that, there are all sorts of little trails cutting across it. And
my boys still catch me out. They say,
Yeah.
"Oh, Mum, we need to go this way," and then we come back out at the same place. And I think we've never tried that part before,
Yeah.
but it extends the bike ride, so they're quite happy.
yeah. But no, lovely spot up in Waterlooville, and yeah, I'm definitely with you on that one. Yeah, and definitely not necessary to be there at 4 a.m. So much. But yeah, no, brilliant. It's been great talking to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in. Really looking forward to working with you on this project, which will be part of our own workplace wellbeing program to just get those first aid courses out to organisations and businesses across
Can't wait
the
to get
city.
started, yeah.
Really looking forward to doing mine with you as well, because all the shaping team are going to be going through the course with you. So it's going to be really, really good to see it. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
This podcast was brought to you by Shaping Portsmouth, working to make Portsmouth the #1 UK city in which to invest, live, learn, work and visit. To find out more, please visit shapingportsmouth.co.uk. This podcast was supported by Spark Community Space and Portsmouth Community Lottery.